When I was living in Colorado, I had a dog. It was Thanksgiving. We were up in the mountains at these hot springs, and he got loose and ran off into the river, and the ice broke, and he fell in this rushing, freezing river. We went out looking for him, and he was literally clinging to a rock. So I went in, grabbed him, and carried this wet dog back to our place, and he's shivering and having this whole experience. But my friend had a microcurrent device, and he literally put the clips on Buddy's ears and began to recalibrate the frequencies of the microcurrent to get Buddy. He literally put him to sleep, and he just ran frequencies for maybe an hour. And then at the end of that hour, Buddy's eyes just popped up, took off the clips, and he was back. And that concept is universal, is how can we bring your body into parasympathetic and allow it to reset?
Hello, and welcome to the Energy Flow podcast. I'm Kelly Kennedy, and I am here to discuss all things energy, fascia, lymphatics, oxygen, and water. Over my 26 years of being on this journey and 19 years in clinical practice, dealing with chronically ill, chronically pained, to the optimizing of health and to everything in between, we have learned throughout these years how to efficiently and effectively teach people how the body works, get them engaged in that system, help them understand how the universe works and how those two connect. And that's what this Energy Flow podcast is about. Whether you are new to us or you've been a longtime listener of over 4 years now, we are so happy and honored to share our heart's honest truth about what we know, what has worked for us, what's worked in the clinical practice, and what might be the key to your next step in your journey. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing this with all that it will resonate with. We look forward to each and every moment of our genuine connection. Thank you for listening. Okay, welcome back to the Flow podcast. This is Kelly Kennedy from the True Wellness Center, your esteemed host and guide through all things frequency, vibration, and energy, which is why we call it the Flow. And I am really excited. Dr. Stephen Schwartz is joining us today on the podcast, and he and I have intersected in many ways, first in the field, then through text, then through actual physical communication. And in the last year, as we've gotten together and had his wonderful technology, the Bioharmonic Vibe Bed in our center, we had to bring Dr. Vibe on the podcast and go talk deep about vibration, frequency, and energy, and just a little bit more about him and us and all the things. So hi, welcome.
Thank you for having me on this podcast, In the Flow, to be in the flow, Kelly. And I'm excited to talk about sound, light, frequency, and vibrations. One of my favorite topics, if not my favorite topic.
Yeah, and you literally embody flow. So I want to talk a little bit about how we started. So when Ayn and I got involved with bioregulatory medicine back in 2006, and I started to learn the science behind energy, as so many of you have heard that story, I was introduced to Bruce Lipton's work, and then I was introduced to quantum physics and trying to understand terrain and the field around us. And we just talked about, it was 2015 that I came across this book, Primal Resonance, and we read it. And little did I know it was Dr. Stephen Schwartz. I mean, I knew it was Dr. Stephen's source, but I didn't know who he was. So we read his book. It really helped me understand a little bit more about the electrical current and the voltage in the body and the biofeedback systems that we were using at the time. And then fast forward many years to last year, 2 years ago, maybe now, Dr. Christine Schaffner met him at the biohacking conference. And she said, wow, if we could hook up the Vibe Bed with Sound of Soul, I think that would be magical. So she made a text introduction, as she does. And then we tried to connect. We had a couple conversations that were good. Then when we met at Cellcore, it was like, we literally put our two technologies together, and it was like kismet. And I was like, we need one of these. Then at the next year's Cellcore, just a month ago, is when many of you know the story, I slammed on the ground and dislocated some ribs, and I needed my team. And Dr. Stephen showed up for me in a way that honestly, nobody else showed up for me that way at Cellcore, because one of the things that I really want to get people to understand is the difference between mechanistic and vitalistic. And if we can talk a little bit about that, maybe in the second half of the recording today, because maybe we'll go over that equation in vitalistic versus mechanistic, because I think that's one of the concepts that is missing. It's a foundational concept for you and I. But I think for so many people in today's industry, they're not thinking of that in terms. And when I went up to Dr. Steven, I said, wow, I really need an adjustment. And he looked at, thing he did was look at me in the eyes, and he centered me. And he said, I understand you're in pain and I understand what you need, but I can't give you what you need right now because I'm here, I'm a vendor, I'm busy, and what you need is much more than just a physical treatment. And I said, I hear you, thank you, I see you, I feel you, and I'll be back when you and I both have the capacity to give me what I need. And it was about 2 days later before both of us had the time and the capacity. He was very busy, gratefully so. And so when he did not touch me. He did not talk to me. He literally put me down on his vibe bed face down. And in 45 minutes or so, I was recalibrated, let's just say. And I wasn't pain-freer yet, but I was definitely recalibrated. I was out of shock finally after 3 days. And I said, it's time. We need to really talk about this on the podcast. So that's how I know Dr. Steven Schwartz. But tell me how you started all this, because you're a chiropractor by training, but you're certainly doing much more than that.
Well, I am. And thanks for that story. And I'm not really seeing patients. I actually have a global practice. I have over 700 of these vibes around the world. And what's great is it's the ultimate in chiropractic, because it's self-care. And you guys can go ahead and what do you need right now? And that's what you choose. And, when you came to me, your body was so active. You were in a active, hypersympathetic stress response. And so, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to adjust your neck or adjust your low back. No, your muscles, there was no way of getting into that place. You really needed to break the cycle. And so the best way to do it is to lay in a field of harmonic resonance with specialized formulations for different things. And I think the first thing we started with energy clearing, I think, and we just went in and I put you face down because I think you had those ribs, right? It was like your ribs were bothering you. So I was like, cool, let's just go flat and just vibrate the ribs with specific harmonic resonance. And then I think we went into cell cleanser, and then I think we went into Universal 5 for stem cell activation, something like that. But I literally just kept checking in, and you literally were melting. You melted into the vibe.
It felt like it was. Yeah. He first asked me to lay face down. In all honesty, I wanted to punch him in the face because, I was rehabbing from my shoulder, my elbow injury still. And then I just this thing with the ribs, and I'm like, really laying on my belly is like the hardest thing to do, but I understand the benefit's going to be huge. So I will. And then when he turned on the first one, the tears, like the energy clearing one, the tears that came out, and then I was needing a tissue because the snot that was coming out, all the excretion. It was clearing, and I could feel my body, like you say, I was so high, intense, and in so much pain and shock and post-traumatic stress, I think a little bit from falling just 4 months prior. My body just started to relax into it and be like, it's okay. It's okay.
And, I want to give your listeners my story and background.
Yes, please.
But I think before that is we're having this topic just as whether you're a practitioner or you are an end user, you need an access point into your nervous system. And two parts. One, you weren't really easy to work with, so lay on the vibe, like I can talk to you, I can touch you, I can do all these things, but you're like, I'm an energy sensitive person. It was too much for me. So let's just put the information into your body and allow you to go through your own journey. And I don't really know any other technology that you need to go into parasympathetic. Actually, I'm having a flashback, if I could share a very interesting story similar to this. It's just popping in right now into my head. I don't know. I was living in Colorado. I had a dog, And he was approaching it. This was the last year of his life, and he was hobbling around and all these things. Anyhow, it was winter time. Remember, it was Thanksgiving. We were up in the mountains at these hot springs, and he got loose and ran off into the river, and the ice broke, and he like fell in this rushing, freezing river. And so we're like, "Where's Buddy? Where's Buddy? Where's Buddy?" And we went out looking for him, and he was literally clinging to a rock.
Wow.
So I went in and like grabbed him and carried this wet dog, back to our place. And he's shivering and having this whole experience. And, obviously we had a fire going and all these things. But my friend had a microcurrent device. And he literally put the clips on Buddy's ears and began to recalibrate the frequencies of the microcurrent to get Buddy. He literally put him to sleep, and he just ran frequencies for like maybe an hour. And then at the end of that hour, Buddy's eyes just popped up, took off the clips, and he was back. And that concept is universal. Is how can we bring your body into parasympathetic and allow it to reset? This also goes back into shock and trauma. This also goes into people that have strokes and are in comas. They're in this, like, it's a fascinating concept, because think about people, they go into the hospital because they're in a coma, and they're on this beep, beep, they're on these machines, they're all hooked up, and they have these lights blinking on, and the doctors come out and they're like, your husband, your wife, your loved one is in a coma, and we have them medicated, and we're not sure if they're going to make it through the night. But if you really think about what a coma is, it's the body shutting down to preserve itself, to really heal itself. And so it's stuck. It's like stuck in this traumatic moment in time. And now you're in a hospital with like stuff in your arm, and you're getting medications, and you feel the energy of your loved ones, and you got these lights under you, and it's basic, and it's not allowing you to get out of it. It's keeping you like in it. So I've had actually conversations about this with our technology, with the Vibe technologies. What if we were using with people that are in coma, that are had strokes, or that people that are stuck in this? Because really the reason that I designed this technology in the first place was really to release shock and trauma and to clear cellular memory and to induce an almost instantaneous parasympathetic response. And when that happens, this is my new favorite medical term I'm going to use.
Go.
Something magical happens. This is New Earth medicine. Yeah, guys, it's magical. Something magical happens in the body. And you know what that magical thing is? The body begins to heal itself. That's the magic. And I think that goes like, we'll talk about this on the second half, but that's the difference between mechanistic and vitalistic belief process. And that's the whole foundation of chiropractic from 1895. So,
and I do want to get in your story, but to your point, I agree. Like when you came up to me, even 2 days later, or when I came up to you 2 days later, and you're like, okay, what's going on? I started to go right into the story from 30 fucking years ago, you guys, from a car accident 30 years ago. And he goes, hold on, just stop. And I appreciate that about Stephen, because as you all know, I'm very high energy, high intensity. And he was just like, okay, I don't have time for this. I'm just going to poke a hole in you. I'm going to tell you to stop. You're vacillating right now. And I don't need to know the story, but I just want to make you aware that you're still living in it right now. And I was like, oh, he's so fucking right. And so he caught me. He got me out of it by just catching my brain. And then he told me to lay down. And that's exactly what happened. It was like a Control-Alt-Delete reset for my body. And all weekend prior to that, I had done things, cellular gens and castor oil packs and things to try to get my body to go into that parasympathetic, but I wasn't. And I'm sure it was from, it doesn't matter what it was from, but the point was I wasn't resetting. And so when he finally got me out of it, I love the vibe bed prior to this, but I become addicted to it. I'm driving down every day, even when we're closed, to come and do the vibe bed. It's a 30-minute drive to get here.
Mhm.
And I do like 35 to 40 minutes of vibe and then drive home. And it's worth the drive because of the reset it does for my body. And I have plenty of equipment at home. But this is definitely, and I knew that you could look up what frequencies, what protocols, and I was doing that. But there was something that happened in that moment with you and I that made me realize differently how to use this tool, which is really what it is. So go back. So you're a chiropractor, you had a clinical practice, and then what happened?
It's a continuation of the story. It's a continuation of the story. I mean, I'm a chiropractor by license. My background's in sports medicine. I went to undergrad for sports medicine at Northeastern University. I went to chiropractic school to work with athletes. I got my first job in a gym in Philadelphia, and it was my dream job. And then somehow I got this download that I was supposed to go to Colorado. I had nothing going on in Colorado other than I was there like many years before. But I went there and I got another job in this multidisciplinary center. And once again, working with professional cyclists and sports athletes and all this stuff. And but there was a woman working there that was doing kinesiology and muscle testing and working with these little energy vials. And her waiting room was packed with people with like chronic illness that no normal people can't resolve. And they were happy and they were getting better. And my mom had an autoimmune disease, it was a journey that she was on. When I was in chiropractic school, she got diagnosed. And I was like, wow, maybe this could help my mother. And so she came out to visit me. And I had a call, I'll plug her, Dr. Cynthia Cortini. I'm not sure if she's still practicing or not, to see Dr. Cortini. And
it was like IOSET or NAET or something?
She was doing NAET and JMT, Jaffe Mahler.
Oh, yeah. Jaffe Mahler. Sure. We know them all. All the three-letter words.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we've been around a long time, brother. I'm not kidding you. So, yeah, I am certified in JMT as well as NAET.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
So this was it. And, my mom for the first time started responding. And Dr. Cortini said, you should go learn this. And I went to San Diego. This was my first year out of school. So it happened like immediately. I had my spiritual awakening that weekend in California, in San Diego. First time I ever went to California. And there was a moment that happened. If I'm going to go back, I usually don't tell this part of the story.
But please.
When I was in chiropractic school, I was in student clinic. I was getting ready to graduate. And like I said, my background was in sports. Okay. That's where my mindset was at. I was a 3D sports injury, spinal, that was my deal. But I had this synchronistic moment that happened one random day when I was driving down the street in Long Island, New York, where I was at a red light and I saw this sign in the window, this totally unassuming sign. It said Yoga Tai Chi. I don't know, for something it guided me in there. And I walked in to this health food store and I said, tell me about the sign. And this guy tells me, he's like, oh, we do these classes, in the attic on Tuesdays, like donation only, you should come.
This was probably like the mid 90s, I'm guessing.
This was actually it was 97, 98.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, it's like 98, something like that.
Because now, people are like, what's the big deal? It's a yoga. Yeah, good job. But we're talking the late 90s, mid 90s, where
Long Island
was doing this then too, and nobody was doing this, like nobody.
Well, so it was interesting because I went up and I had this. I never tell the story, by the way, but this is like the precursor. This is the precursor to the story.
Yeah.
Which is magical. So I go to this thing and he teaches, it was an amazing class. We would learn, there's a small groups of people would gather up there, and he taught us how to do Tai Chi to cultivate our own energy. And then he taught us how to do shiatsu, how to like take this hardest energy. And it was monkey see, monkey do. It was do. I had no idea what I was doing, but we did it. And I started having these miraculous healings occur. And I was like, what? Like, how? Because I was a student. And I was like, but I went back and I started sharing it with my classmates. And the word got out about Dr. Stephen Schwartz and about, because everybody I was touching started having these like miraculous healings. And so one day I had 5 of my classmates laying on the ground and I was doing this thing. And somewhere along that way, I got hit energetically. I don't know. I got nauseous. I got blurred vision. I got like whatever. I got scared. I was like, eh. And my chiropractic friend, like totally like bounced out my energy. And I remember saying to him, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't understand the power of this, but I know that I'm in over my head. And I basically
in over my head. Ha ha ha.
Wait, what did you say?
In over my head is kind of funny, actually. That's a good pun. You're in over your head.
I was in over my head with energy.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was in the deep end of energy world. And, I basically retired from doing it. I had one more interesting experience, actually, right before I graduated. My last patient I had in student clinic, he had diabetes and he was just kind of in there, whatever, we're just getting credit for him. And I said, hey, I have this thing that I could do. And it's not sanctioned by the school. And if you report me, if I get caught doing it, I'll be expelled. But I think it'll help you. What do you think? And he's like, go for it. And I did it. And it restored sensation into his toes. And this was in 98. It was 98. And he said, I haven't had sensation in my toes since I was diagnosed with diabetes. And I said, when was that? He said 1987.
Wow.
And so I did it. And then I graduated, went on my journey. So being back in San Diego, back in that moment, I learned Jaffe-Mahler technique, and I just had this full body yes. It was just like, we learned about reprogramming the immune system using vibrational resonance, using these little energy vials. We learned about infectious agents, bacteria, viruses, parasites, mold, fungus, yeast, mycoplasmal infections, and how these were the root of chronic inflammation. And this was the first training I took. And we didn't learn about any of this stuff in school, but my body was like full yes. And I remember saying to myself that weekend, I was in San Diego. I remember walking on the beach, just kind of processing. And I said to myself, I said, what was coming in was my life will never be the same after this weekend. And I went back, my practice changed immediately. And I started doing energy work with these little energy vials, kinesiology, never muscle tested a day in my life before going to this training.
What?
And we started working with autoimmune chronic disease patients. And it took me on this path. I learned Jaffe-Mahler technique. Then I learned NAET, Nambudrapod's allergy elimination technique. Then in 2002, I learned about Dr. Les Feinberg's
NMT neuromodulation technique.
Neuromodulation technique. That became like my main technique. And it was all, but what was interesting, and you'll appreciate this.
It's a very technique.
What's that?
I love his technique because he gets so precise.
You get so precise. And that's what Dr. Jaffe said. She said, if you want to be terrific, you have to be specific. Yeah. That was one of her little things that she said. But the thing about with NMT was they used something called neurological intentional scripts, neurological intentionals, where they would speak it. And so you're speaking, and it's like blah, 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 and people are like, Dr. Schwartz, what are you saying? And it's like, oh, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to your body. It's a little weird.
Very lengthy wording, very lengthy, and very specific conscious wording, and talking to the subconscious and conscious and engaging the nervous system through vibrational words, essentially. Go ahead.
Exactly. So what you're going to appreciate is what I did next.
Okay.
Because also at that training in San Diego, I met I guess my lover. I met a lover who also became my mentor, who actually ironically was one of the biggest competitors of Dr. Cortini, who we met there, also lived in Denver. And so I learned so much from her during this time, but she introduced me that I could imprint into the vials myself. So I became an excellent imprinter because I started imprinting all this information in the vials myself. So I was like, why don't I just imprint Dr. Feinberg's NMT into a vial system?
This is really funny. because I'm literally learning all this stuff at the same time, going, and I was like, oh, we'll just imprint it into this and that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He got an Eagle Remedy Maker. And this was the point I was lost. I'm like, okay, what are you doing? It looks like you're like making shit up as you go along. Like, honestly, it just seemed like magic, but clients were better. And I couldn't, you know, disclaim what was happening. Yeah. But I was really, you're just like saying like something to a vial and then you're putting in the first batch and you're running that. And I was like, but things were happening. It was, so this is very funny timing because you and I were doing this at the same time.
Exactly.
All right. So,
we're in the same morphic field.
Yeah. Same wavelength.
Same wave, the same flow.
Same flow.
Yeah. And the same flow. So this transformed my entire practice because I had like I transcribed his entire program. And then from there, I started adding in all these other things. I met like a shaman. So I started putting in like all that stuff and I was working this and then all these things, but it was really epic because it made things super quick and it's preserved my energy. It was more palatable to my community. And like one of the programs, okay, I'm not sure where one of the most powerful programs I did with neuromodulation technique was he had this entity removal protocol. And, it's freaky because most people, you're not going to tell people have entities, but you're like talking about it and like, what are you talking about? So what it would show up in the assessment and I'd say, oh, we're just going to move some energy. And then we just do the program and it'd come back like 90% better the next visit. So this started turning my mind about this whole idea about like, they don't even have to know what's going on. Like, it's not a placebo, like, oh, hey, because that just freaks people out about, oh, we have an entity. Like, what do you mean you have an entity? Like, I just did it. We just removed it. And this is what it came back. So it started shaping. And what you said also, Kelly, about like, you can't really talk about your patients about like water and intention. Like they would never buy it. But what I started to, because I'm a scientist, okay? Like at the end of the day, I'm a scientist. I'm a clinician. And I never thought, and I am an amazing healer. However, beyond that, I'm not a guru. Maybe a guru, maybe a little bit of a guru, but my guruism is about empowering others to be their own guru. But the point that I'm making in this time, in my earliest years of what was happening was I didn't really think that I was the one doing it. I felt that I was executing a specific formulation of science. And if I could crack that code, I can utilize that in different ways there's the key word, as a delivery system. Because really the Vials was a delivery system, then neurological therapeutic attentional scripts, that was another delivery system. Radionics, we worked with that was a delivery system. Then we worked with biofeedback, that's a delivery system. So we go down this road, just to cut to the chase. In 2007, I was opening up a large clinic and I started hiring associates. And I was like, you know what? I had like 1,000 vials. And I was like, dude, there's no way I don't even know what's in all these vials. Like, there's no way I could reproduce this to that. And I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the resources. It's not going to happen. So I was like, so what else can I do? And it just kind of dawned on me, like, well, what about sound? Like, what if I use sound? And I said, who do I know has a recording studio? And for the record, I don't even know anything about a recording studio. I don't like anything about a recording studio. But one of my patients / friends who I had done some trainings with, he was a professional musician, and I said, do you have any health issues? And he told me, he said, I have a really severe allergy to cats, and I just started dating this girl that has 3 cats. And I really like her, but it's a mess. Like, I go over there, the snot and the whole inflammation. It's not the sexiest thing. I'm like, I got you, totally got you. And at this time, I had one of my trays was a cat allergy elimination protocol, super consistent. I got great results with it. So all of a sudden, boom, scientist, here's my control. I go to his house and I'm like, to his recording studio. I'm like, how do we take this and put it into whatever that is? And it was Ableton music production software, which was literally set up just the same as those boxes with Vials. In fact, they're called cells. And so we started just experimenting with recording information,
The frequency, which is the energy in the vial.
energetic signatures. We started experimenting with energetic signatures in the audio file. And next thing I know, over the next 4 days, he was allergic to 17 or 18 of 20 he had a very severe allergy. And over the next week, I treated him 4 times and completely eliminated his cat allergy. And I'm happy to say that was in 2007. He's married to Lois to this day.
With the woman with the cats.
Yeah, to the woman with the cats. They're married. They have babies. They live with cats. I recorded my first 2 albums with him, and we founded my company, Bioharmonic Technologies, got founded from that experiment. And at the same time, I also I also created a portable biofeedback system in 2007. And guess what other flow parallel was being developed in 2007 at the same time?
What's that?
Marcus Schlemke, the developer of the Healy. He was developing the time waver machine in 2007. I listened to his talks about when he started developing it. And I actually developed the Healy before he did.
Right.
2007. And because it didn't exist, there was no apps. We had like this thing I bought at Best Buy. It was like $2,000. It had like a little stylus, and I was using headphones. And it was a really crude kind of navigation system of how to use frequencies for healing the body with this tablet. And I have some pictures actually of me down in Peru working with like indigenous people with this prototype. And that ended up taking us into getting hired to work trading the ASA Balance, which was a $30,000 biofeedback system. So I started developing biofeedback systems. I had a download in 2009 after producing my second album that I wasn't making music per se, but I was actually making biofeedback programs.
Right.
And I needed a delivery system that would vibrate the connective tissue of the body. And that's what came in 2009. And that was the precursor to what is now the Vibe system. But I want to go back to something that's, I think, really important that I don't want to gloss. We don't have to gloss over it this day and age.
Yeah.
I think relevant is the vials. Using intention with water is, in that moment, I said to myself, okay, how is this possible? And this was before Dr. Emoto. This was before The Message Water. I mean, this was, that movie actually came out in 2004. I was imprinting in Vials in 2000. And if your community's not, I'm sure they're familiar with What the Bleep Do We Know? 2004, that movie came out.
That's so old. I don't know if I've ever talked about it. Yeah.
So you know what two mega stars made their
Harry.
Who?
Harry's one of them. Harry Massey was in it.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. And Joe Dispenza.
And Dr. Emoto.
Oh, Emoto was in it. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I don't realize that.
He had that really cool scene in the subway with the water, where they're like, if this is what can happen to water, imagine what happens in your body. And my girlfriend turned to me at the time and she looked at me. She goes, "That's what you do."
Yep.
And I was staring at this silver screen saying, that is what I do. And now it's in a movie and life will never be the same. And that was the beginning. And I want to share with your community really the foundation, which I think is vital, is we're 70 to 90% water. And in the second half of this podcast, we're going to talk about some very specialized equations for longevity and immortality. And it's based off of these principles. So I'll just give you a little teaser on it, but essentially we're water and we're surrounded by a living connective tissue matrix, an exoskeleton that's made up of microfilaments, microtubules, intermediate tubules that consist of one piece of material. What they make up, they do one physiological effect. They respond to your environment through vibrational resonance. So now it becomes pretty easy. You have this vibrational resonant material that creates this shell around water that's conductive and holds memory. Okay, so now we just need to influence the environment. Thank you, Bruce Lipton. What the biology of belief, epigenetics, for to opening that portal for us. And now this is what we're looking at, is this is epigenetic applied sciences. Because really, I remember seeing Bruce Lipton in 2004. He lectured on his book, Biology of Belief, in 2004, and it changed my life.
Yeah.
And I remember at the end of it, like I said, I was already in practice for 4 years, specifically working with autoimmune diseases, using exclusively this vibrational techniques and technologies, techniques in that time. But I remember saying, what's the applied science to this, Bruce?
Yeah.
And he talked about Psych and all these like subconscious reprogramming techniques, which I think are great. But nothing's really plugging into the epigenetic framework of our nervous system more than full body vibration, and even better than light. Because light, the only difference between sound and light is speed.
And the impact. Sound has the most impactful of all the frequencies. Sound makes the most impact.
Because it interacts on the three-dimensional dimension for which we are operating. Light is interdimensional.
Correct, of the fascia. And I would love to pause and then go to our second half, because I want to go into that a little bit more about the fascia, collagen fibers, and the piezoelectric effect and all that. Because now you all know why he's called Dr. Vibe. He's got a lot of vibration and he's got a lot of energy, and you can see he really walks his walk. And you know, that's one of our core values here at True Wellness is walk the walk, walk with integrity, be authentic self. And, you know, Dr. Stephen and I have truly harmonized our energy over the last year and a half. And I want to thank you, first of all, for what you've created. I'm so excited about getting our second Vibe bed that'll be in my treatment room to hook Sana Soul up. And we're going to talk about why we do that.
Oh, you're going to put that in your house?
Well, I'm going to put it in my house until I heal. Then it's coming in on my treatment table, on my bed. And so that everybody's going to have their Sound of Soul with vibration, not just sound, because it's tough for me to do it in that room, which is across the hall, when I'm in here using Sound of Soul. So that literally, when I was laying down that day, I was like, okay, this could be one of the reasons I fell, because I don't think I would have ever laid face down on it. And I instantly went, oh my God, this is going to help so many more people so much faster, because I often start with people on their bellies because they're feeling less vulnerable.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just could feel a whole different, I mean, I've done the vibe bed a lot, but when I did it face down, it was a whole different game. And I was like, okay, I want to play with this, because I think what you have highlighted so many great things. And I so appreciate your story and everything you've done, because it's so in alignment with what we've done at True Wellness. And I really want people to understand that everything in life is a frequency and vibration, and we're looking for harmony. Harmony means we're in regulation. Harmony means we're in regeneration mode. Harmony means our beautiful water crystals look beautiful. And as he said, we're 70-90% water. So this is looking at the terrain. This is looking at the entry point to affect the majority of the body. So, you know, if you're not familiar, I mean, there's 700 of these nationwide. So you have on your website.
Worldwide.
Find it? Worldwide, I'm sorry. Worldwide. Do you have a place on your website where people can find where their vibe bed is close to them, or is that a little more?
We do. It's a work in progress of keeping up with having it populated. But yes,
for any of you to know, that part of what we do is very hard.
What's that?
But,
the organizational part?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're great eccentric people, but keeping up with who has a vibe bed, who's in clinic versus who's using it for their personal use, that's the challenging part. And who's ready to see clients and all that. Because just because people buy them doesn't mean they have a clinical practice, I would imagine. People are buying these for home use as well, correct?
We probably sell 50% to end users. So this is something that's really beautiful about what I love that I created. Because in my early journeys, it was Dr. Schwartz, the Dr. Schwartz show. Go see Dr. Schwartz. and I'm like a free spirit. So I want to go travel, and I'm like, cool, I need to get, next thing you know, I'm traveling and I'm not working. I'm not making any money. I got to get associates. And then I hire associates, and people are like, oh, wait till Dr. Schwartz come back. I'm like, no, see the associates. But then we ended up moving into technology. And now I was working with all associates that were working with it, which really didn't depend on me at all, other than I was in there. So I worked a couple of days a week. But then I started selling these $30,000 biofeedback machines to doctors with my protocols. And then we basically reproduced me, but in these medical offices. And then that expanded. But then it was $30,000 in medical offices. You had to go to the office. But then the next phase was, why don't we just make a product that can go directly to the end user? And now we just go directly to the end user, whether you want to go to the doctor or not. You can just put it in your home and use it. But something magical happened, another magical experience. Now we're empowering others to not just take control of their own health, but now they become stewards to support their community. Now they're becoming practitioners with the vibe. So it gives them an outlet to create for themselves as well too, and it generates revenue for them. So
it's simple. You've made it very simple. It comes with a tablet, and then there's protocols. There's, it's all pretty preset for you. We're going to talk on the second half where the frequencies come from, the source of that and all that. But it's very simple. And the end user cost is less than 10 grand. It's like, what is it? 65 or 7,500.
Yeah, 6,500. There's another one. The one you got on is 5,500. We're actually running a special right now because we're on back order. So I'm not sure when this podcast is going to come out, but if it's
now in like July, I think. Genevieve told me that today.
Hopefully we won't be on back order, but if we are, then there'll be some special back order deals, which I'd recommend everybody take advantage of.
Yeah. So it is very affordable. And I believe we have a code and all that. So we'll put all that in the show notes so everyone knows how to get to you. Tell them how they can find you, because you don't have your own podcast, but you're on a lot of podcasts, and he's out there educating all the time. He's always at conferences all over the world. So, but tell them how to find you.
So my name is Dr. Stephen Schwartz, Stephen with a V, Schwartz, Schwartz. And there's lots of Stephen Schwartzes out there. And we're all famous. So my company is Bioharmonic Technologies. You can go to Bioharmonic Technologies, IES.com. We're really active on social media, Instagram, Facebook. So you can go find us on Instagram, Bioharmonic_Technologies. Also, if you want to follow me personally on Instagram, it's Dr. Vibe, DRVIBE. And then this is my book, Primal Resonance. This is where it all began.
We'll put a link for your book down here. You can pick it up on Amazon. It's a great book. It's an easy read, in all honesty, for people that, even if it's your first time reading through this type of information, it's a great place to start.
I wrote this book for my patients.
Yeah, it's obvious.
I really wrote it. I wanted to write it for my patients to be able to understand how to understand the fundamentals. And it talks about the top 10 ways on how to reverse aging and degeneration using sound, light, frequency, and vibration. And it talks about a new epidemic in America, which I talked about in 2015, which if you changed America to world, it explains COVID. And it's been referred to as the doctrine to the new earth. So you can find us on Amazon, Primal Resonance, or Dr. Stephen Schwartz. And let's see, we have a really amazing YouTube channel. I invite you to check it out, Bioharmonic Technologies on YouTube. And come vibe with us.
Yes, come vibe with us and learn more about the equation for longevity, more about vitalistic versus mechanistic. We're going to talk about running frequencies and the source of frequencies, and actually how you apply the science of resonance on the second half. So if you would like to join us, make sure you click into the membership program. And thank you so much, Dr. Vibe, for creating a magnificent tool as a practitioner, as a clinician, that has facilitated so much for us with our client base, which is what us as practitioners are always looking for. How can we facilitate their healing to be faster, more comprehensive? And you really have done it. So we thank you tremendously from True Wellness.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, champions of the vibe flow community, energy flowing through that body, thank you for sharing this time with us and getting through the entire episode today. I know time is what we're spending here as our currency on this planet as people, and it really does mean a lot that as we devote our time and energy into creating this content, that you stuck with us throughout it. So if you would like more on this particular subject from this expert and get that free gift, make sure to register for our Energy Flow Forum. And you too, with a very nominal price, can access all sorts of upgraded content and deeper dives into the very subjects that you love: energy, fascia, lymphatics, oxygen, and water. As you know, as always, on this show and any content that we create, it is for your own health purposes. This is not intended to be advice or medical diagnoses or professional advice. It's purely information that if it resonates with you and you apply it and you upgrade, we love to hear about it. What a great coincidence, and we're happy to be on that journey with you. If this doesn't resonate with you and you know somebody it will, pass it along. And in the meantime, know that we truly are here to show you and explain to you and be with you through this lovely journey of life, and to share our experiences together and help each other upgrade, because that's how we're going to do this, together, collaborating, with love at the center. I'm Kelly Kennedy, and I am so grateful from my heart to yours to share this time, energy, and space with you.